Amal adjusted her camera lens, capturing the vibrant energy of Cape Town as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Her heart hummed with contentment. She loved her city, and after 24 years it still never ceased to amaze her. Today, however, felt different. There was a strange electricity in the air, feeling that something significant was about to happen. As she strolled down Long Street, her eyes caught a man leaning against a brick wall. His strong jawline and thoughtful eyes intrigued her, and she instinctively raised her camera to capture the moment. Just as she clicked the shutter, the man looked up, locking eyes with her. Startled, Amal lowered her camera, her cheeks flushing. "Sorry, I didn't mean to intrude," he stammered, feeling a rush of embarrassment. The man chuckled, his smile warm and disarming. "No intrusion at all. I'm Thabo." He introduced himself, extending his hand. "What do you see in this city that's so captivating?" Amal returned his smile, feeling her nerves ease. "Everything. The stories, the people, the hidden beauty in ordinary moments. I'm Amal." As they began to walk together, their conversation flowed effortlessly. Thabo had a calm confidence that made Amal feel at ease, and she found herself sharing more than she usually would with a stranger. They spoke of their favorite spots in Cape Town, their shared love for the city's vibrancy. As they reached the end of the street, Thabo turned to her with a soft smile. "It's been great meeting you, Amal. I hope we cross paths again." Amal nodded, her heart fluttering with a strange mix of excitement and curiosity. "I hope so too, Thabo." As they parted ways, Amal couldn't help but glance back. She watched as Thabo disappeared into the crowd, her thoughts already filled with the possibility of seeing him again. Days turned into weeks, and Amal found herself thinking about Thabo more often than she cared to admit. Their encounter had left an impression on her, and she couldn't shake the feeling that their paths were meant to cross again. One afternoon, while setting up for a photo shoot near the waterfront, she spotted Thabo in the distance, watching a group of street performers. His expression was one of deep thought, completely absorbed in the moment. Without thinking, she called out to him, "Thabo." He turned, broad smile spreading across his face as he recognized her. "Amal, what a pleasant surprise." They spent the rest of the afternoon exploring the streets together, sharing stories about their lives and discovering new corners of the city. Amal was drawn to Thabo's kindness and his unique perspective on life. He saw the world with a sense of curiosity and wonder, mirrored her own. As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the water, Thabo turned to Amal with a sincere expression. "I've never met anyone like you, Amal. You make everything seem more meaningful." Amal felt her heart flutter at his words. "I feel the same about you, Thabo. You're different from anyone I've ever met." They stood close, the night air charged with unspoken emotions. Slowly, Thabo leaned in, his lips gently brushing against hers in a tender, lingering kiss. It was a moment of pure connection, and Amal knew she was falling for him. As their relationship blossomed, Thabo decided it was time for Amal to meet his family. He chose to introduce her only to his mother first, aware of his father's rigid expectations and not wanting to subject Amal to that pressure prematurely. Thabo's mother welcomed Amal warmly, her smile genuine and inviting. The evening was filled with laughter and conversation, and Amal quickly felt at ease. She shared stories about her photography, her love for Cape Town, and her dreams for the future. "You have a beautiful soul, Amal," Thabo's mother said kindly as they sat down to dinner. "I can see why Thabo is so taken with you." Amal blushed, grateful for the acceptance she felt. She had been nervous about this meeting, but Thabo's mother's kindness eased her worries. After dinner, as Thabo walked Amal to her car, couldn't hide his relief. "I'm so glad you met my mother. She's the most important person in my life, and now, so are you." Amal's heart swelled with emotion at his words. "I'm happy too, Thabo. This feels right." They stood in the quiet street, cool evening air wrapping around them like a comforting embrace. Amal felt a sense of belonging that she hadn't felt in a long time, and she knew her feelings for Thabo were growing stronger every day. "I want you to know how much you mean to me, Amal," Thabo continued, his voice filled with sincerity. "I've never felt this way about anyone before." Amal smiled, her eyes shining with affection. "I feel the same way, Thabo. I believe we have something special, something worth holding on to. Thabo nodded, his gaze never leaving hers. I promise to always be honest with you, Amal. No secrets, no lies. Amal appreciated his words, but she had no idea that Thabo was already keeping a secret, one that had the potential to change everything. As their relationship continued to deepen, Amal and Thabo spent more time together, exploring their shared passions and building a strong connection. One evening, after a romantic dinner at Thabo's home, they found themselves in his living room, the soft glow of candlelight casting a warm, intimate atmosphere. Thabo picked up his guitar and began to play a gentle melody, his fingers moving skillfully over the strings. Amal watched him, her heart swelling with affection. She had never felt so close to someone before, so understood and cherished. As the last notes of the song faded, Thabo set the guitar aside and moved closer to Amal. I've never felt this way before, he admitted, his voice soft and filled with emotion. I want to share everything with you, Amal. I want you to know how much you mean to me. Amal felt her cheeks warm as she nodded, her heart pounding in her chest. I feel the same, Thabo. Their lips met in a passionate kiss, their desire for each other growing with each passing second. Thabo's hands gently cupped Amal's face as he deepened the kiss, his touch tender and reassuring. Amal felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, but Thabo's gentle touch and comforting presence made her feel safe and loved. They moved to Thabo's bedroom, their kisses becoming more intense as they undressed each other. The world outside faded away as they lost themselves in each other, their bodies moving in perfect harmony. For Amal, it was her first time, and she felt a mixture of emotions, joy, love, vulnerability. But above all, she felt connected to Thabo in a way she had never experienced before. Afterward, they lay together in the quiet of the night, their bodies entwined. Amal felt a deep sense of contentment, knowing that she had found someone who truly cared for her, someone she could trust with her heart. I love you, Thabo, Amal whispered, her voice filled with emotion. Thabo smiled, and gently stroking her hair. I love you too, Amal. More than you'll ever know. As they drifted off to sleep in each other's arms, Amal felt a sense of peace and happiness, unaware of the storm that was brewing just over the horizon. As Amal and Thabo's relationship grew stronger, Thabo found himself grappling with a secret he had kept hidden from her since the beginning. 6 years ago, he had been in a relationship with Phoebe, a woman from a powerful family. Their relationship had been arranged by their families to secure a business merger and maintain the family's reputation. Phoebe and Thabo had a son together, a boy named Ali. However, shortly after Ali was born, Phoebe's family had sent her to the USA to continue her studies, effectively separating them. Thabo had stayed behind, focusing on his career and distancing himself from the life his family had planned for him. Despite his love for Amal, Thabo was terrified of revealing this part of his past. He feared that she would see him differently, that she would feel betrayed by the lies he had told by omission. But as their relationship deepened, the weight of his secret grew heavier, and Thabo knew he couldn't keep it hidden forever. One evening, as they sat on the couch after dinner, Amal rested her head on Thabo's shoulder, her fingers tracing circles on his chest. Thabo, I've been thinking, she began, her voice soft but serious. I've been so happy with you, and I feel like we're building something really special. Thabo's heart pounded in his chest, guilt gnawing at him. He knew he needed to come clean, but he wasn't ready. Not yet. I feel the same way, Amal. I want you to know that I'm committed to this, committed to us. Amal smiled, lifting her head to look at him. I'm glad to hear that, because I've been thinking about our future, and I want you to know that I'm all in. Thabo nodded, forcing a smile, but inside, his fear intensified. He couldn't bear the thought of losing Amal. I'm all in too, he said, hoping his voice didn't betray his anxiety. They sat in silence for a moment, the room filled with an unspoken tension. Amal sensed something was bothering Thabo, but she chose not to press him. She trusted that he would open up to her when he was ready. Later that night, as Thabo lay in bed beside Amal, he stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. He knew he couldn't keep this secret forever. The longer he waited, the worse it would be. But he wasn't ready to face the consequences of his past just yet. Amal, sensing his unease, turned towards him, her hand gently resting on his chest. Are you okay, Thabo? Thabo turned to face her, forcing a smile. Yeah, I'm okay. Just a lot on my mind with work and everything. Amal nodded, accepting his answer, though she couldn't shake the feeling that something more was going on. She decided to give him space, hoping he would open up when he was ready. As they drifted off to sleep, Thabo felt a knot in his stomach, knowing that the longer he kept this secret, the more it would hurt Amal when the truth finally came out. Thabo knew that he couldn't keep his secret forever. But for now, he chose to bask in the warmth of Amal's love, holding on to the peace they had built together. Days turned into weeks, and their relationship continued to blossom. Amal felt herself falling deeper in love with Thabo, trusting him more with each passing day. She believed they were building a strong foundation for their future, one filled with love, honesty, and mutual respect. However, the calmness in their lives was about to be shattered. One morning, Amal woke up feeling nauseous. She brushed it off at first, thinking it was just a passing bug, but when the symptoms persisted, she decided to take a pregnancy test. Her heart raced as she waited for the results, her mind spinning with a mix of hope and fear. When the test came back positive, Amal's heart skipped a beat. She was pregnant. A surge of joy and anxiety washed over her as she thought about how to tell Thabo. She knew this news would change everything, but she felt ready for the next step in their relationship. She planned a special dinner for that evening, eager to share the news with him. Meanwhile, Thabo received an unexpected call from his family. Phoebe was returning from the USA, and he was expected to be at the airport to welcome her back with Ali and their families. Thabo's stomach churned with unease. He hadn't seen Phoebe in years, and the thought of facing her and his family filled him with dread. Thabo agreed to go to the airport, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter would bring his carefully balanced world crashing down. Amal was at the airport for a scheduled photo shoot, capturing the hustle and bustle of arriving passengers. Her mind was filled with thoughts of Thabo and their future together, especially now that she was pregnant. She couldn't wait to share the news with him later that evening. As she adjusted her camera lens, she noticed a familiar figure in the distance. Thabo was standing with a group of people, his expression tense yet composed. Curious, Amal focused her camera on Thabo, snapping a few pictures. Suddenly, a woman emerged from the crowd and embraced him warmly. The woman was beautiful and elegant, and there was an unmistakable familiarity between her and Thabo. Amal's heart sank as she zoomed in, hands trembling slightly. She captured the moment they hugged, feeling a growing unease. Then she heard the woman's voice, clear and loud above the airport noise. Ali has grown up to look just like his father, she said with a smile. Amal's breath caught in her throat as she realized the woman must be Phoebe. And the boy beside them, Ali, was Thabo's son. Shock and confusion washed over her as she processed what she was seeing. Thabo had a child, son, and he had never mentioned it. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of this revelation. Feeling betrayed, Amal quickly packed up her camera gear, heart heavy with hurt and disbelief. She needed to get out of there before Thabo spotted her, before she lost control of her emotions. She left the airport in a daze, her world turned upside down by this unexpected discovery. Driving home, Amal's mind replayed the scene at the airport over and over. How could Thabo have hidden something so important from her? The man she thought she knew, promised her honesty and transparency, kept a secret that shattered her trust. She felt a deep sense of betrayal, wondering what else he might be hiding. Tears streamed down her cheeks, blurring her vision. She kept driving, needing the solitude to process her emotion. Back home, she sat on her bed, clutching the positive pregnancy test. Her feelings of joy about the baby were now tainted with confusion and fear. How could she build a future with someone who wasn't honest with her? Questions swirled in her mind, each one more painful than the last. Thabo called her several times that evening, but Amal couldn't bring herself to answer. Each ring felt like a stab to her heart, reminding her of the man she thought she could trust. She needed time to think, to decide if she could confront him without breaking down. Meanwhile, Thabo was growing increasingly worried. Amal never ignored his calls, and the longer she went without responding, the more his anxiety grew. He sensed that something was terribly wrong, but had no idea that his secret was now out in the open. Amali's mother, sensing her distress, gently knocked on her bedroom door. "Amali, sweetheart, what's wrong?" she asked softly. Amali looked up, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Mom, I don't know what to do," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I just found out that Thabo has a son with another woman, and he never told me, and I'm pregnant." Her mother sat beside her, wrapping her arms around Amali in a comforting embrace. "Oh, my dear," she murmured, "you need to take your time and figure out what's best for you and the baby. Whatever you decide, I'm here for you." Amali nodded, feeling lost and alone. She didn't know if she could ever forgive Thabo for his deception, but she also knew she had to consider the life growing inside her. The next morning, Thabo decided to go to Amali's house to explain himself. He knew he had to come clean about his past with Phoebe and their son, Ali, and hoped Amali would understand. He couldn't bear the thought of losing her over a mistake he made years ago. Part of his life, he had tried to move past. When he arrived, he knocked on the door with a sense of urgency, his heart pounding in his chest. Amali's mother answered, her expression guarded. "What are you doing here, Thabo?" she asked, tone cold. "Please, I need to speak to Amali," Thabo pleaded, his voice full of desperation. "I need to explain everything. I never meant to hurt her." Amali's mother shook her head, eyes filled with disappointment. "She doesn't want to see you right now, Thabo. You've hurt her deeply. I think it's best if you leave." Thabo's shoulders slumped, and he felt a wave of regret and fear. "Please, just let me talk to her. I love her, and I need her to know that. I can't stand the thought of her thinking I don't care." But Amali's mother remained firm. "You need to leave, Thabo. Give her time. If she wants to talk to you, she will. But right now, she needs space." Thabo nodded, his heart sinking. He knew he had to respect Amali's wishes, but the thought of losing her tore him apart. He turned away from the house, his mind racing with thoughts of how to make things right. As he walked away, he thought about the first time he met Amal on Long Street, how they had clicked instantly, and how her laughter had made him feel alive. He couldn't lose that. He couldn't lose her. Amali avoided Thabo's calls and texts, needing space to process her emotions. Thabo, on the other hand, felt increasingly lost. His family continued to pressure him to honor his past commitments to Phoebe, unaware of the turmoil consuming him. Thabo knew he had to make a choice, but he felt trapped between his family's expectations and his love for Amal. He decided to meet Phoebe at a coffee shop to clear the air and make his position known. As they sat across from each other, Phoebe seemed oblivious to Thabo's inner conflict. Her smile, bright, hopeful. "I'm glad we're moving forward with the wedding plan," she said. "It's what our families want, and Ali deserves to see us together." Thabo felt a surge of frustration and guilt. "Phoebe, I need to be honest with you," he said, pulling his hand away from hers. "I don't want this. I don't want to marry you. I'm in love with someone else." Phoebe's smile faltered, her expression turning to shock. "What are you talking about, Thabo? After everything our families have planned? What about Ali?" "I'll always be there for Ali," Thabo replied firmly. "But I can't marry you. I need to follow my heart, and my heart is with Amali." Phoebe's eyes narrowed, anger replacing her confusion. "You're making a mistake, Thabo. You're going to regret this." Thabo shook his head, his resolve strengthening. "I have to do what's right for me, Phoebe. I'm sorry if this hurts you, but I can't live a lie anymore." Phoebe glared at him, her face tight with bitterness. "You'll regret this, Thabo," she spat before storming out, leaving Thabo alone, his heart heavy with the weight of his decision, but clear in his purpose. Feeling lost and unsure of how to reach Amal, Thabo decided to seek advice from Mr. Dlamini, a wise old man who had always been like a father figure to her. He hoped that Mr. Dlamini could help him find a way to make things right with Amal. Mr. Dlamini's bookstore was a quiet sanctuary, filled with the comforting smell of old books and polished wood. Thabo entered, his heart heavy with uncertainty. Mr. Dlamini looked up from his reading glasses, a warm smile on his face. "Thabo, my boy, what brings you here today?" Thabo took a deep breath, his voice shaky with emotion. "Mr. Dlamini, I've made a mess of things. I've hurt Amali, and I don't know how to fix it." Mr. Dlamini listened carefully, his expression thoughtful. "Sit down, Thabo. said gently. Tell me what's happened. Thabo recounted the story from his past with Phoebe to the secret he had kept from Amal. As he spoke, Mr. Dlamini nodded, his eyes filled with understanding. Love makes us do foolish things sometimes, he said softly, but honesty and sincerity can mend many wounds. Have you tried speaking to her? I tried, Thabo replied, his voice strained, but her mother wouldn't let me see her. I just want to make things right, but I don't know how. Mr. Dlamini leaned back in his chair, considering Thabo's words. Give her time, Thabo. She needs to process her feelings. Don't give up. When the time is right, she'll be ready to hear you out. Just be prepared to show her that you mean every word. Meanwhile, Amal, still reeling from the shock of seeing Thabo with Phoebe and Ali, decided to visit Mr. Dlamini for guidance. As she entered the bookstore, she saw Thabo sitting with Mr. Dlamini, looking lost and dejected. She hesitated, her heart torn between anger and a deep-seated love. Mr. Dlamini noticed her and gave her a reassuring smile. Amal, why don't you join us? Suggested kindly. I think it's time we all had a talk. Amal took a deep breath, her emotions swirling, and slowly walked over to where Thabo was sitting. Amal sat down across from Thabo, her eyes filled with a mix of hurt and determination. She had questions that only he could answer. Thabo looked at her, his face a portrait of regret and anxiety. He knew this was his chance to come clean, to finally tell her everything. Amal, Thabo began, his voice breaking slightly. I'm so sorry. I know I should have told you about Phoebe and Ali from the beginning, but I was afraid. I was afraid of losing you, afraid you would think less of me. Amal's gaze was steady, though her heart ached with each word he spoke. I trusted you, Thabo. I thought we had something real, something honest. Why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth? Thabo sighed, running a hand through his hair. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't want to lose what we had, Phoebe and I. It was all arranged by our families. It wasn't what I wanted. I never loved her, not like I love you. Amal felt tears welling up. She fought them back. She wanted to stay strong. And Ali, she asked, her voice trembling. What about your son? I love Ali, but I was young and confused. I didn't want the life that was planned for me, Thabo confessed, his eyes pleading. But I never wanted to hurt you, Amal. You have to believe me. I want a future with you and our baby. I want to make things right. Amal took a deep breath, her mind racing. She still felt betrayed, but seeing the pain and sincerity in Thabo's eyes softened her anger. I don't know if I can just forgive and forget, Thabo. It's not that simple. I know, Thabo replied quietly, his voice filled with sorrow. But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I love you, Amal, and I'm ready to prove it to you every single day. Amal stood up, heart heavy with conflicting emotions. I need time, Thabo. I need time to think about everything and decide what's best for me and our baby. Just give me space. Thabo nodded, understanding her need for distance. Take all the time you need, Amal. I'll be here, waiting, and I promise I'll do everything I can to make things right. As Amal walked away, Thabo felt a mix of relief and despair. He had finally told her the truth. But now he had to face the consequences of his actions and hope that their love would be strong enough to survive. Despite Thabo's confession, his troubles were far from over. When Amal finally agreed to meet Thabo's parents, their reaction was one of shock and disapproval. Thabo's father, a stern and traditional man, could hardly contain his anger, and Thabo introduced Amal as the woman he loved, the mother of his unborn child. What is this madness, Thabo? His father thundered, his face flushed with rage. You have a duty to this family. You're throwing everything away for some girl? Amal stood quietly by Thabo's side, her heart pounding. She had known this would be difficult, but the outright rejection still stung. Thabo clenched his fists, struggling to remain calm in the face of his father's outburst. She's not just some girl, father. Amal is the woman I love, and she's carrying my child. I won't abandon her. His father's eyes narrowed, his voice cold and unyielding. You think you can just walk away from your responsibilities? You have a son, Thabo, a duty to uphold. You're being selfish and reckless. Thabo took a deep breath, feeling the weight of his decision pressing down on him. I'm not walking away from anything. I'm choosing to be with the woman I love. I will take care of Ali, but I won't marry Phoebe just to please you. The room fell silent. tension hanging in the air like a storm cloud. Thabo-a's mother, usually a calm and supportive presence, looked distraught. "Thabo," she said softly, "think about what you're doing. Family's reputation." "I've thought about it, Mother," Thabo interrupted, his voice steady, filled with emotion. "I've thought about it a lot, and I've made my decision. I choose Amali. I choose my own path." Thabo-a's father's face contorted with fury. "Then you must choose, Thabo. Your family or her. You can't have both." Thabo glanced at Amal, who stood resolutely beside him, her eyes filled with unshed tears but also with determination. He knew what he had to do. "I choose her," he said quietly, his voice firm. "I choose my own happiness, my own future." Without another word, he took Amali's hand and led her out of the house, leaving behind the life he had always known. As they stepped outside into the cool evening air, Thabo felt a mix of fear and relief. He knew there would be consequences for his decision, but he was ready to face them, with Amal by his side. As they walked away from his childhood home, Amal squeezed Thabo-a's hand, her heart heavy yet hopeful. "We'll get through this together," she whispered, and Thabo nodded, knowing that their real journey was just beginning. Determined to move forward with their lives, Thabo and Amal began planning their wedding. Despite the joy of their upcoming nuptials, they faced numerous challenges. Thabo-a's family was furious, refusing to support their union or even acknowledge Amal's presence in Thabo-a's life. Some of Thabo-a's friends also distanced themselves, unable to understand why he would defy his family's wishes. However, Thabo and Amal found strength in each other, their love growing stronger with every obstacle they faced. They leaned on each other, determined to prove that their love was worth fighting for. One evening, as Amal was finalizing details for the small ceremony, Thebe appeared at her door, her face a mixture of anger and desperation. "Why are you doing this?" Thebe demanded, her voice trembling. "I thought Thabo and I would build a life together for Ali's sake. You're ruining everything." Amal took a deep breath, resolve unwavering. "I'm not ruining anything, Thebe. Thabo made his choice. He chose to be with me, and I love him. I'm sorry if this hurts you, but you need to understand that this is what he wants." Phoebe's eyes filled with tears, her voice breaking. "You don't understand. Our families have plans. They've always had plans. This isn't just about you and Thabo. It's about everyone." Amal's heart ached with empathy, but she stood firm. "I understand more than you think, Phoebe. But I also know that Thabo deserves to be happy, just like you do. You both deserve to live lives that make you happy, not lives that others dictate." Phoebe stared at her, her expression a mixture of frustration and sadness. "You'll regret this. You're making a mistake, and Thabo will see that one day." Amal watched as Phoebe turned and left, her heart heavy with the weight of the confrontation. She knew that this was one of many battles they would have to face, but she was determined to fight for her love and her future with Thabo. As the days passed and the wedding approached, Thabo and Amal remained steadfast in their commitment to each other. They knew that their journey would not be easy, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, the day of Thabo and Amal's wedding arrived, bringing a mix of joy and tension. The absence of Thabo's family was a painful reminder of the sacrifices they had made to be together. Thabo and Amal remained resolute. They had chosen love over obligation, and they were determined to make their union official, no matter the cost. A small ceremony was held in a beautiful garden surrounded by close friends and a few supportive family members. Mr. Dlamini and Amal's mother were there, their faces glowing with pride and happiness. Thabo and Amal exchanged vows under a canopy of blooming flowers, their voices steady and filled with emotion. "I promise to love you, support you, and stand by you through all the challenges we may face," Thabo said, his eyes never leaving Amal's. "You are my heart, my soul, my everything." Amal smiled through her tears, her heart overflowing with love. "I promise to be your partner, your confidant, and your best friend," she replied, her voice trembling with emotion. "I love you more than words can express." As they sealed their vows with a kiss, the small group of guests erupted in applause, celebrating the union of two souls who had fought for their love against all odds. Thabo and Amal felt a surge of relief and joy, knowing that they had finally made it through the storm. After the ceremony, they danced under the stars, their laughter mingling with the soft music that played in the background. Despite the absence of Thabo-a's family, they felt a profound sense of peace and fulfillment. They had each other, and they knew that was all they needed. As the night went on, Thabo and Amal stole a quiet moment together, sitting on a bench and watching the moonlight reflect off the nearby water. "We did it," Amal whispered, her head resting on Thabo's shoulder. "We really did it." Thabo smiled, wrapping his arm around her. "Yes, we did. And I wouldn't change a thing. I love you, Amal, more than anything in this world." Amal looked up at him, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. "I love you too, Thabo. Ever and always." As Thabo and Amal began to settle into their new life together, they tried to focus on their future. However, the tension with Thabo's family continued to cast a shadow over their happiness. His parents refused to acknowledge Amal or their marriage, and the distance between them grew. One day, out of the blue, Thabo received a call from his cousin, who had been doing some digging into Phoebe's past. The truth that emerged was shocking. Phoebe's son, Ali, was not actually Thabo's child. The real father was Danny, a close friend of Thabo's who had been secretly involved with Phoebe. This revelation shook Thabo to his core. Phoebe's family had orchestrated the lie to secure a powerful alliance with Thabo's family, hoping to protect their reputation and ensure their daughter's future. The news spread quickly, reaching both Thabo's and Phoebe's families, leaving them in a state of shock and embarrassment. Thabo's parents, realizing their mistake and the pain they had caused, reached out to Thabo and Amal, asking for forgiveness. The revelation had shattered their illusions, forcing them to confront the truth about their own action. Amal felt a mix of relief and anger as she processed the news. She was grateful that the truth had finally come out, but she was also hurt by the deception and the pain it had caused her and Thabo. Thabo, too, felt a surge of conflicting emotions, but he knew that this was an opportunity for healing and reconciliation. "We need to forgive them," Thabo said softly to Amal, his hand gently squeezing hers. "For us, for our future, and for the family we're building." Amal nodded, her heart heavy but her resolve strong. "You're right, Thabo. We need to find a way to move forward together." With the truth finally out and their families seeking reconciliation, Thabo and Amal decided to meet with Thabo's parents. They knew that healing would take time. They were willing to take the first step toward rebuilding their family bond. As they sat in Thabo's parents' living room, the air was thick with tension and unspoken apology. Thabo's mother was the first to speak, her voice trembling with emotion. "We're so sorry, Amal. Thabo, we let our pride and expectations cloud our judgment. Can you ever forgive us?" Amal looked at Thabo, who nodded, expression softening. She took a deep breath, voice calm but firm. "It will take time, but we're willing to try. We want to move forward for the sake of our family." Thabo's father, who had been silent until now, stepped forward, his voice breaking with emotion. "We were wrong to judge you, Amal. You've shown us what true love and strength are. We're so sorry for the pain we caused." Amal nodded, her heart softening. "Thank you. I appreciate your apology, and I hope we can find a way to be a family again." Thabo's mother reached out, eyes filled with tears. "We want to be part of your lives, and we want to be there for our grandchild. Please, let's try to heal together." As they continued to talk, the tension in the room began to ease. Thabo and Amal felt a sense of relief, knowing that they were taking the first steps towards healing the wounds of the past. It wasn't an easy process, but they were willing to put in the effort to mend the rift and rebuild the trust that had been broken. Later that evening, as Thabo and Amal left his parents' home, they felt a renewed sense of hope. "I think we're going to be okay," Amal said softly, leaning into Thabo as they walked hand in hand. "It won't be easy, but I think we can heal." Thabo nodded, his heart lighter than it had been in weeks. "We will. Together, do anything." With their families on the path to reconciliation, Thabo and Amal focused on building their future together. They welcomed the birth of their daughter, Amy, a beautiful baby girl who brought joy and light into their lives. As they held her in their arms, they felt a deep sense of peace and fulfillment. Their families, too, began to mend the rifts that had divided them. Thabo's parents embraced Amal and their granddaughter, grateful for the opportunity to make amends and be a part of their lives. Phoebe and her family, realizing the damage they had caused, returned to the USA to start anew, leaving behind the drama and moving on with their lives. Thabo and Amal continued their work. Amal with her photography, and Thabo with his efforts to build a more inclusive and ethical business. They supported each other, learning and growing together, always remembering the journey brought them to this point. One evening, as they sat on their porch watching Amy play in the garden, Thabo turned to Amal, his heart full. "I never thought we'd get here," he said softly. "After everything we've been through, feels like a miracle." Amal smiled, leaning into him. "It does. But I wouldn't change a thing. Every step, every struggle brought us closer together. And now we have our beautiful daughter and a family that's stronger than ever." Thabo nodded, his eyes shining with love and gratitude. "I love you, Amal. Thank you for standing by me, for believing in us." Amal kissed his cheek, her eyes filled with tears of happiness. "I love you too, Thabo. You're my partner, my best friend, and I wouldn't want to be on this journey with anyone else." As they watched the sunset, they knew that they had built something special. A life filled with love, happiness, and the promise of a bright future. Amy growing each day, Thabo and Amal found themselves more dedicated to building a stable and happy future for their daughter. Thabo's business thrived, driven by his newfound passion for ethical practices and community engagement. Amal's photography also flourished, capturing the vibrant and diverse life around them, from family portraits to the beauty of everyday moments. Their home became a place of warmth and laughter, filled with the joy of raising their daughter and the support of their families. Thabo's parents, now regular visitors, cherished every moment with their granddaughter, often bringing gifts and stories of the past, helping to build a bond that had once seemed impossible. As their relationship with Thabo's family healed, Amal's mother found herself becoming closer with them as well. They shared meals, attended events together, and built a new sense of unity that had been missing for so long. It was a testament to the power of forgiveness and the strength of love. One evening, as Thabo and Amal stood on their porch, watching Amy chase fireflies in the garden, they felt a profound sense of peace and contentment. As they stood there, holding each other close, they knew that they had found a happiness that was rare and precious. They had faced many challenges, but their love had carried them through stronger than ever. They had built a life together, filled with love, trust, and mutual respect, a life that was stronger than the trials they had faced. Thabo took Amal's hand, squeezing it gently as they watched their daughter explore the world around her. As they held each other, watching the sunset over the horizon, they knew that they were exactly where they were meant to be, together, with a love that would last a lifetime. Share with me which country you're following this story from, and leave your thoughts in the comments, Amal said with a smile. Don't forget to leave me a like to help me grow my channel. It will only take you a few seconds, but it will help me enormously. I'm counting on your goodwill.